In life, what makes human beings suffer the most is not poverty, nor is it external upheavals, but it is precisely the ego within. That small ego, though invisible, possesses the power to control all our emotions, words, and actions. When the ego arises, people start wanting to be right, wanting to be superior, wanting to be praised, wanting others to acknowledge them, and wanting everything to go according to their will. But it is from that very wanting that countless arguments, resentments, and sufferings arise, sometimes in a family just because of one sentence that isn't pleasing. A husband and wife can be angry with each other for a whole week, sometimes at the workplace, just because one isn't praised, jealousy arises, and in the monastic life, just because one wants others to acknowledge that they are practicing correctly, division and rivalry are born. The Buddha taught that the self is merely an illusion, nourishing it is suffering. Therefore, whoever clings more to the ego, that person suffers more. The bigger the ego, the smaller the heart. Dear Buddhists, try to look back and see, isn't it true that the majority of arguments in life stem from the fact that everyone wants to be right? When two people both consider themselves to be right, the conversation immediately turns into a battle of egos. One person wants to prove their point, the other refuses to lose, and so both suffer together. Even though in every argument no one truly wins, there is only hurt, only distance. Many people say, I am not stubborn, I just want the other person to understand me. But if you think carefully, that is still the ego wanting to be acknowledged, wanting to be praised, wanting others to see that one is right. When the ego is touched, we immediately react. When the ego is praised, we are overjoyed. When criticized, we are sad. When misunderstood, we are angry. All of this is controlled by the ego. If we know how to look straight at it, recognize it, we will see that the ego has no form. It is just a collection of habits of wanting to be superior, wanting to be right, wanting to have more than others. In Buddhism, the ego is called self-attachment in shape, which means clinging to the I and the mine. When we still cling to the self, we still suffer. When we know non-self VNing, we begin to find peace. A person who has not yet seen non-self always thinks, I am right, I am being harmed, I am being looked down upon. But a person who understands the Dharma sees that everything is just dependent origination. Someone speaking wrongly about us is a condition for us to learn patience. Someone praising us is a condition for us to learn humility. Someone criticizing us is a condition for us to clearly see the ego still hidden deep inside. When we no longer want to be superior, want to win, or want to prove anything, naturally the heart will be light, the mind will be bright, and happiness will be present. Because the root of suffering does not lie in who is right or wrong, but in the fact that we refuse to let go of the small ego in our hearts. There is a strange thing. The more we argue to prove we are right, the more we lose our blessings. Because while arguing, we give rise to a mind of anger, a mind of rivalry, and speak heavy words that hurt others. One moment of anger can burn away merits accumulated over many years. Therefore, the more we contend, the more we lose. The more we try to be superior, the further we are from the way down. A wise person does not need to be superior to anyone, because they know that being superior to others does not make one happy. Only when conquering oneself is it a true victory. The Buddha taught conquering thousands of armies is not equal to conquering one's own self. The person who conquers themselves is the person who can stop the ego. The person who can stop the ego is a truly free person. The bigger the ego, the smaller the heart. When the heart is small, we only see others' faults, not our own. When the heart is wide, we see that both others and ourselves are still learning. Therefore, a person who understands the Dharma does not need to argue to be praised. They only need to remain silent to keep their peace. Sometimes a single moment of silence can dissolve a war. A gentle smile can melt a fit of anger. And a tolerant heart helps to people meet again with love. A wise person does not win with words but wins with the heart. Winning with words is a victory for a minute. Winning with the heart is a victory for a lifetime. Buddhists practicing cultivation should contemplate that if we are suffering because we want to be right, then that very wanting is already wrong. A wise person does not try to make others understand them, but learns how to understand others. When we understand others, our hearts naturally become gentle. When we are gentle, we do not want to be superior. When we do not want to be superior, we no longer suffer. The ego is like a shadow. The more you chase it, the more clearly it appears. The more you look straight at it, it vanishes. Once we see that the nature of the ego is illusory, we will no longer waste energy striving to be superior, but only keep the mind bright, gentle, and quiet. Life is inherently like a river. Whoever clings to the idea that I am the clear water, the other is the muddy water, will never find peace in their heart. Only when we see that all are just flowing waters, no one superior to anyone, no one inferior to anyone, can we truly be at peace. The ego only dissolves when the heart knows humility, and it only knows humility when it understands that we are all learning the Dharma in the midst of life, all practicing to reduce the self in every breath. If you, dear Buddhists, know how to live like that, no longer wanting to prove, no longer wanting to rival, then every word, every action, every breath is already a practice, practicing in daily life to reach the Tao in the heart. If after listening to this point, in your hearts, dear Buddhists, you suddenly realize that so much suffering in life begins from the very ego that wants to be right and superior, then please stop for a moment to smile. Just seeing the ego is already the beginning of putting it down. I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps your sincere words will help someone else who is also suffering because of self-attachment find peace. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button for the channel so we can listen to more of the Buddha's teachings together, so more good conditions, and nurture a humble heart amidst a life full of rivalry. Silence is a silent strength that only those with true wisdom can perceive. In life, people are afraid of silence because they fear being seen as weak, fear being misunderstood, fear being at a disadvantage. But for someone who understands the Dharma, silence is not losing but winning. It is not fear but understanding. It is not avoidance but protection for one's mind from giving rise to anger, from creating bad karma. The Buddha taught that a wise person does not need to win with their mouth, but wins with their heart. That saying sounds simple, but if anyone can practice it, they will see it is the key to opening the door to true peace. When others get angry, their words are like a strong wind. If we resist, two strong winds will meet and a storm will form. But if we are silent, the wind just blows past and dissolves. A person who understands the Dharma knows that sometimes words cannot resolve misunderstandings. Only gentle silence can melt them. Any Buddhist who has experienced arguments will surely understand. The more you speak, the more tired your heart becomes. At first, you only want to explain, then you want to be superior, and finally it turns into an argument. At that moment, words no longer carry wisdom, but become daggers, causing both sides pain. Many people regret it only after speaking, because in a fit of anger, the mouth creates karma, while the mind is unaware. Therefore, a person who understands the Dharma chooses silence to preserve their heart. Silence does not mean not knowing how to speak, but knowing when to speak and when not to. Speaking at the right time is wisdom. Remaining silent at the right place is compassion. Silence to keep blessings. Silence to nurture wisdom. Silence to let the heart settle and look deeper. When a person can maintain silence while others are noisy, that is not weakness but strength. Strength because one is not controlled by emotions. Strength because one has enough wisdom to see that all arguments will pass. There are words people say just to vent the frustration in their hearts, not intending to harm us. If we understand that, we will no longer be angry, but will give rise to compassion. Silence at that moment is no longer hindrance, but an act of compassion. When we are quiet, we are neutralizing the angry energy of the other person. Silence is the virtue of a person with a vast mind with a bright heart. Like a calm lake surface, even if the wind blows, the water only ripples slightly and then becomes flat and quiet again. A person learning the Dharma, when hearing something contrary to their wishes, only needs to breathe gently, smile, and recite Namo Amitabha Buddha, and the mind immediately returns to itself. The other person's anger will also gradually dissolve. In the Buddhist sutras, it is taught, if you are silent and your mind is bright, that silence is the way. If you are silent but your mind is angry, that silence is suffering. Therefore, silence must possess wisdom. It is not silence in frustration, but silence in understanding. When we are silent with a bright heart, others may not understand us today, but they will feel our peace tomorrow. Sometimes a word of justification convinces no one, but a gentle smile makes people think. That is speechless speaking, but very profound. A person who understands the Dharma uses silence to teach, to resolve, to nurture the heart. Many people think silence is empty, but actually within that silence, there is wisdom, there is love, there is the maturity of the mind. Buddhists should practice listening with a quiet mind. When others say things contrary to your wishes, do not react hastily, but listen with a gentle heart. Outside is sound, inside is awareness. When listening with a mind free of anger, we will see the suffering in the person's words, and at that moment, our hearts naturally generate compassion. When there is compassion, there is no more contention. When there is understanding, there is no more anger. The silence of a person who understands the Dharma is not hiding, but practicing, because in silence there is wisdom, in quietness there is cultivation. A kind word can save a person, but a timely silence can save both. People who do not understand the Dharma think silence is losing, but actually silence is winning. Winning is not making the other person lose, but defeating the anger within oneself. A person who can remain silent when insulted is a person practicing in every breath. When we are silent, we are listening to the voice of our own heart. When we are still, wisdom is speaking. Every time we stop our words, we preserve our blessings. Every time we stop our anger, we preserve our mind. Just like that, gradually the winds of life still blow, but our hearts are no longer shaken. Silence becomes armor protecting the mind, helping us walk through gossip gently, walk through waves peacefully. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I hear that silence is gold, but when others speak wrongly, misunderstand, or insult me, and I keep quiet, they think I am weak and encroach further. Should I stay quiet or speak up to protect myself?" That question is very real, because in life it is not easy to stay quiet when insulted, especially when we know we are not wrong. But the Buddha taught a wise person does not need to win with their mouth, but wins with their heart. Silence is not losing, but knowing how to stop to avoid creating more karma. When we speak in anger, those words become a fire burning both ourselves and others. But when we are silent in understanding, silent in love, silent in clarity, then that very silence is the greatest teaching. Worldly people only see the exterior, seeing whoever speaks loudly as the winner, but a practitioner sees deeper. Whoever keeps a peaceful heart is the true winner. Buddhists should understand there are two types of silence: the silence of fear and the silence of understanding. The silence of fear is suppressing oneself and resentment, causing the heart to cling more and suffer more each day. But the silence of a person who understands is silence in wisdom, in love, and clearly seeing the nature of the matter. That silence does not make us smaller, but makes the mind grow larger. When we know how to be quiet at the right time, our words spoken afterward will have value, because words emitted from a peaceful mind will naturally be received by the listener. But if spoken in a fit of anger, words, even if correct, become wrong. The Buddha taught that one word spoken at the right time is more precious than 1,000 beautiful words. Therefore, knowing to stop, knowing to be quiet is a manifestation of wisdom, not weakness. Some say, "What if I don't speak? What if they continue to do wrong?" Actually, silence does not mean abandoning. It is just stopping in the first moment so the mind can calm down, and then speaking with wisdom, not with anger. When we are calm, our words have healing energy and the power to transform. The listener will not react but will listen. But if we speak while both are hot, then even beautiful words only make the wind stronger. Silence is not being quiet forever, but knowing to stop to speak at the right time, in the right way, with the right words. That is the art of living for a person with the Tao. In life, there are things that do not need to be said, because for those who do not yet understand, the more you speak, the more they resist, just like boiling water. To drink it, you must let it cool. When a person's mind is still angry, our words cannot enter. At that time, silence is the way to protect both sides. A gentle smile, a peaceful gaze is sometimes stronger than 1,000 words of justification. Sometimes when we are quiet, others think we lose. But in the Tao, that is the way to preserve blessings. Because just one argument is enough to deplete blessings, silence is so blessings remain. When blessings remain, the mind is bright. When the mind is bright, naturally, there will be people who understand. A wise person does not need anyone's praise, only needs to know their own heart is without fault. A gentle person does not need to win, only needs to maintain a wholesome mind. Any Buddhist who has ever tried to be silent during a fit of anger will see that initially it is extremely difficult. But just getting past a few breaths, the heart will be as light as a cloud. At that moment, we understand that silence is the path of liberation, because in silence there is patience, In patience there is wisdom. In wisdom there is peace. Worldly people are nosy because they want to prove they are right, while those who understand the Tao are quiet because they know that right and wrong will eventually dissolve in impermanence. Today people speak wrongly about us. Tomorrow they might change their minds. Today people praise us. Tomorrow they might forget. So what is the point of arguing? Keeping a gentle heart, keeping a bright mind. That is the true victory. Therefore, silence is not suffering at disadvantage, but preserving blessings. Silence is not avoiding, but stopping karma. Silence is not fear, but using wisdom to resolve conflict. A person who knows how to be quiet at the right time is a person who knows how to practice in every breath. When quiet, the mind sees more clearly. When still, the heart becomes brighter. The winds of life may blow, but if our mind is at peace, worldly words are just like the sound of wind passing through the forest. The Buddha taught that a person who knows how to be quiet when necessary has saved countless karmas from being born. Silence is gold not because it is precious in its quietness, but because it keeps the mind pure amidst a noisy world. And when you, dear Buddhists, understand that silence will no longer be entrance but freedom, if after listening to this part, in your hearts, dear Buddhists, you see that silence is not weakness, but the strength of wisdom, knowing to stop words to keep the heart gentle, knowing to be still to preserve blessings, then that is a great step forward on the path of cultivation. I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps the gentle words and good intentions of you, dear Buddhists, will help someone who is suffering because of others' words to awaken. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button to spread the Buddha's teachings together so more good conditions, and pray for all Buddhists to increase their blessings through beautiful words, good thoughts, and a mind as quiet as water amidst the turbulent currents of life. In Buddhism, the word non-patience, endurance, is a profound practice that worldly people often misunderstand. Many people think patience is swallowing anger, is enduring, is forcing the heart, not speaking, not reacting. But true patience is not like that. Patience is keeping the mind free from anger amidst adversity, is still smiling amidst things that go against one's wishes, is knowing to step back to preserve complete peace. People who do not understand the Dharma see patience as losing, but people with wisdom know losing a word is winning a lifetime of peace, because in the moment we are patient. We have conquered the fit of anger, and anger is the fire that can burn away all the merit we have created over many years of practice. The Buddha taught that a fire of anger can burn a whole forest of merit. Therefore, a practitioner is not afraid of suffering at disadvantage, only afraid of losing blessings. Not afraid of being misunderstood, only afraid of getting angry and creating karma. Any Buddhist who has ever been angry knows when anger arises, the mouth speaks fast, hands shake, heart pounds, head feels hot, body feels tired, the whole body is uneasy. Anger is like a fire. When it flares up, it burns both inside and out. But when we are patient, we are extinguishing that fire with the water of wisdom. A person who knows patience is not a weak person, but a person with inner strength and depth, because only a strong person dares to stand still before provocation. Only a person who understands dares to smile when insulted. Only a true practitioner dares to step back to keep blessings. Patience is not swallowing anger, but transforming anger with understanding. When we see that everything is due to causes and conditions, karma, we will no longer blame anyone, knowing that the other person is just a condition for our karma to manifest. At that moment, instead of anger, we give rise to gratitude, because thanks to them, we see the parts of our hearts that are not yet cultivated. The Buddha taught that patience is the armor of the practitioner, for who lives without encountering things contrary to their wishes. But a person with patience walks through adversity gently, like someone walking through rain without getting wet, while a person without patience, just a small drop of water causes a thunderstorm. When someone speaks wrongly about us, we can speak back to prove ourselves. But if we speak with an angry mind, those words have already caused a loss of blessings. But if we are quiet and patient, blessings increase. The disadvantage of today is just a form, appearance. The benefit of a peaceful mind is true blessing. Worldly people are often afraid of losing, afraid of being looked down upon. But people who understand the Dharma are only afraid of losing peace, because losing peace is losing oneself. Therefore, suffering a disadvantage to preserve blessings is not stupidity, but wisdom. Being patient once, blessings increase one part. Being patient many times, wisdom opens 10,000 parts. When we are spoken of wrongly, misunderstood, or treated unfairly, think of it as an opportunity to repay karma. Past karma is like a seed. It must meet conditions to sprout. When the fruit arrives, if we resist, that karma remains forever. If we accept, that karma dissolves. A practitioner does not run away from karma, but smiles to repay karma, because repaying karma is liberation. Someone asked, "Why do I do good deeds but still get harmed by others?" Actually, that is not being harmed, but old karma coming for us to repay. When repaid, new blessings are born. But if we are angry, resentful, and hateful, the old karma has not dissolved, and new karma is born again. So patience is the medicine that cures both, resolving old karma and preventing new karma. A person without patience suffers upon suffering. A person with patience turns suffering into cultivation. Patience is also a way to preserve blessings. Blessings do not only come from doing charity and giving alms, but also from how we keep a gentle heart. When someone does something contrary to our wishes, if we are patient, we are preserving blessings. If we get angry, we are spending blessings. Like a person with a small bottle of water, every time they get angry, they spill a little until it runs out, and they are thirsty and miserable. A practitioner who knows how to keep blessings, someone who knows to stop before getting hot, knows to smile before getting angry, knows to be silent before heavy words are uttered. At that time, blessings are not lost but increased. Patience is the most durable path to preserving blessings because it nourishes the compassionate mind, eradicates the angry mind, and makes wisdom brighten over time. Buddhists should remember, the person who can be patient is not the person who endures, but the person who sees causes and conditions in everything. That person understands that whatever anyone says or does is just a mirror to reflect their own mind. When we are patient, we no longer resist, no longer fight, but transform. Suffering turns into a lesson. The person causing us suffering turns into a person helping us practice. At that moment, we will feel our hearts become incredibly light, no longer resentful, no longer angry, only grateful, because that person gave us the opportunity to practice the word patience, a word that contains blessings, wisdom, and the Tao. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I hear that patience is a blessing, but when insulted, misunderstood, or spoken to harshly, I feel like there is a fire in my heart. The more I try to suppress it, the more I suffer. Sometimes I am afraid that if I keep quiet forever, people will look down on me. So what must I do to be patient without suffering, to be quiet without being weak?" That question is very real. For who in life has never suffered once because of being hurt, misunderstood, or insulted? But the Buddha taught, when others make you angry, they do not truly make you suffer. It is your own mind of anger that makes you pain. That saying is enough to see that the root of suffering does not lie in people, but in one's own mind. We are not yet patient enough, not yet bright enough. Patience is not suppressing while in pain, but keeping the mind unswayed amidst adversity. When we are patient but still angry, that is not yet patience but hindrance. When we are patient in understanding, in love, in wisdom, then that patience is the Tao. A person who understands the Dharma does not let anger drag them away. When insulted, they know to stop, know to breathe, know to contemplate. They do not react immediately because they know that reacting in anger only creates more karma. They choose silence to hear the voice of their heart, to see that the person speaking is also suffering. Is there anyone happy who wants to make others suffer? Only when their minds are full of afflictions do they speak unwholesome words. If we get angry, we are just receiving their suffering energy, bringing it into ourselves. But if we are patient, we stop, we smile, we are repaying karma without sowing new karma. When we understand this, patience is no longer hindrance, but liberation. Buddhists should practice contemplating every time they encounter something contrary to their wishes. Who is angry? Who is suffering? If we see the other person is suffering, we immediately feel compassion. If we see ourselves suffering, we immediately stop. When compassion and stopping are both present, the anger immediately dissolves. That is true patience. Some people think patience is letting people encroach, but actually, patience is the way to preserve blessings, to protect the mind. A person who is not patient creates karma. A person who knows patience eradicates karma. The Buddha once taught, one heavy word can topple a tree of blessings. One act of patience can plant a whole forest of merit. A person who understands the Dharma hears this and is happy, because every time they are tested is a time they get to practice. There are also people who say, "I am patient all the time," but they don't change. I feel discouraged. But Buddhists must understand we are patient not to change others, but to calm our own minds. When the mind is at peace, blessings naturally arrive. Sometimes the other person doesn't change, but our hearts no longer suffer. That is a great victory. If we keep waiting for others to change, we will suffer forever, because they do not practice. How would they know to change? Only when we practice can we turn suffering into happiness. Patience is not to be loved, but to stop anger. Patience is not for anyone to praise, but for the heart to be at peace. When understanding that, we will feel incredibly light. Some compare patience to holding hot coal. If we let go early, our hands don't get burned. If we hold it forever, we hurt ourselves. When someone speaks in pleasant words, if we react, we have picked up the coal. If we are patient, we have let go Letting go brings immediate peace. A person without patience suffers because of self. A person with patience rejoices because of the Tao. Just like the water's surface, the more it is disturbed, the muddier it gets. The more it is still, the clearer it becomes. A practitioner keeping a patient mind is making their mind return to its inherent clear state. When the mind is clear, worldly words are just like wine passing over water, leaving no trace. Therefore, patience is not for others to see us as gentle, but for us to truly be gentle. Patience is not for others to praise, but for us to feel our hearts cool down. Patience does not make us weaker, but makes our minds grow larger. Every time we manage to be patient once, compassion grows one part, wisdom opens a little more. A practitioner is not afraid of suffering at disadvantage because they know that suffering at disadvantage is repaying karma, and patience is sowing blessings. A person who knows patience today will have peace tomorrow. A person who keeps a mind free of anger today will have bright wisdom in the next life. And when understanding like that, we will see that every adversity is a precious lesson. Every person who hurts us is a teacher teaching us patience through the deepest path, the path of compassion and wisdom. If after listening to this part, in your hearts, dear Buddhists, you feel that patience is not weakness, but the strength of a wise person knowing to suffer at disadvantage to preserve blessings, knowing to be silent to resolve karma, then that is the beginning of peace. I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps a sincere word from you, dear Buddhist, will help someone who is suffering from anger find peace again. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button to spread the Buddha's teachings together so more good conditions, and pray for all Buddhists to increase blessings through beautiful words, good thoughts, and a wholesome patient mind amidst an impermanent life. In this life, the only thing that does not change is change itself. Everything flows away, everything shifts, nothing exists forever in the same form. The person who loved us yesterday may be angry today. The person who speaks ill of us today may cherish us tomorrow. The task that is hard today may be easy tomorrow. The anger of today can vanish in just one breath. Understanding that the Buddha calls seeing impermanence Vien Thong. When seeing impermanence, the heart naturally becomes light because we no longer cling to what is happening, no longer want to prove, no longer want to hold on. Many Buddhists suffer because they keep wanting everything to be as they wish, want others to understand them, want circumstances to follow their will. But life is inherently impermanent. Who can keep anything forever? When understanding this deeply, we will know how to let go. Letting go is not abandoning, but seeing the truth clearly. Everything comes and goes. Every condition arises and ceases like drifting clouds, like passing breezes. The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent. Anything that has form changes. The body is impermanent. Emotions are impermanent. Thoughts are impermanent. And people's words are also impermanent. A heavy sentence today, tomorrow people forget. A word of praise today, tomorrow also changes. Yet humans keep holding on to things that have passed in their hearts, making themselves suffer. Sometimes we hold on to anger at those who have passed away. Sometimes we keep sadness over old stories. Sometimes we are tormented by things that cannot be fixed. Every time we remember is a time we suffer, but if we look with the wisdom of impermanence, we will see that all is just like a dream. Every dream eventually dissolves. Only the awakened person finds peace. When the mind is awake, we see clearly that there is nothing worth clinging to, no one worth getting angry at, because everything is changing every second. Letting go Bung X is not forgetting everything but keeping the mind unattached. A practitioner learns to let go not out of indifference, but out of deep understanding. When seeing impermanence clearly, we know that arguing is useless, rivalry is meaningless. Someone who is superior today may lose tomorrow. Someone being praised today may be criticized tomorrow. Someone suffering today may be happy tomorrow. Life is a flow. No one can grasp water in their hands. Letting go is opening the hand so the water returns to the stream. Those who do not know how to let go suffer because of holding. Those who know how to let go are at peace because of releasing. Letting go is not abandoning responsibility, but knowing to keep what is worth keeping, that is the wholesome mind, and letting go of what is worth letting go, that is obsession, hatred, and ego. When we can let go, we will feel light because the heart is no longer dragged by things that have passed. Letting go is a practice that helps the mind expand, blessings increase, and wisdom brighten. A person who can let go is a person who has begun to understand the Tao. From impermanence and letting go, the mind will naturally generate gratitude, because we see that whoever comes to us, whether they love or hate us, is a karmic condition helping us learn. Those who love us teach us happiness. Those who hate us teach us patience. Those who betray teach us letting go. Those who insult teach us humility. When understanding like this, we will no longer resent anyone, only feel gratitude. Gratitude to life for giving us challenges to mature. Gratitude to people for giving us adversity to practice. Gratitude to ourselves for still being on the path of learning the Tao. A person with a grateful heart is a person who no longer has anger, no longer blames, no longer resents. Every day that passes, whether favorable or adverse, they view as a lesson. Such a person is at peace wherever they go, right in whatever they do. Buddhists try to contemplate those who once caused us pain. Are they really still here? Some have forgotten, some have changed, some are no longer alive, but the suffering remains because we have not let go. If today we understand impermanence, we will smile and say, everything will eventually pass. That saying is not just consolation, but the truth. When the heart calms down, the winds of life also stop blowing hard. But if we keep holding on, the wind will blow stronger, the waves will rise higher. Letting go is not losing, but to see what remains. When we let go of one resentment, the heart has one more joy. When we let go of one attachment, the mind has one more ray of light. Just like that, bit by bit, we will see that peace is not far away. It lies right in every grateful breath, every moment we are willing to relax our ego. Finally, the person who truly understands impermanence is the person who lives with appreciation, knowing that everyone around us will eventually leave. So we love them more, knowing that youth, health, and time do not stay forever. So we cherish them more, knowing that everything changes. So we stop arguing, stop rivalry, stop holding resentment in our hearts. Because what is the point of holding when all is just clouds in the sky, water flowing in the river? Only a grateful heart makes this life meaningful. When we are grateful, whether in adversity or prosperity, we smile. That is the moment our mind touches true peace. The peace of a person who sees impermanence clearly can let go and is grateful for everything. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I understand life is impermanent, but when encountering loss, being betrayed, or loved ones passing away, I still feel great pain in my heart. I know I must let go, but the more I say let go, the more I remember and suffer. So what must I do to truly let go and be grateful in the things that hurt me?" That question is very real. For who in life has never suffered once because of loss or because human hearts change? The Buddha taught that all conditioned things are impermanent, but understanding impermanence with the intellect is not enough. You must see impermanence with the heart to be truly at peace. When we only understand, the mind still clings. When we see, the mind begins to let go. Understanding is theory, seeing is practice. People can only let go when they see clearly for themselves that holding on only causes more suffering. Like someone holding a hot coal, the tighter they squeeze, the more it hurts. Only when opening the hand does the burning stop. Letting go is not forgetting, but not letting what has passed control the present. People cannot let go because they still want that person to return, want that story to be different, want time to turn back. But impermanence does not allow it. Life moves forward. There is no road leading back to yesterday. Attachment is trying to cling to what has drifted away. Buddhists should contemplate that everything happens due to causes and conditions. Nothing comes without reason. People come to us, whether bringing happiness or pain, are also due to affinity. When the affinity ends, they leave not for us to resent, but for us to learn. If we learn, that is a blessing. If we resent, that is karma. Therefore, be grateful to those who hurt us because they help us see our minds are still clinging, help us grow larger inside. Be grateful for adversity because it teaches us to let go. Be grateful even for suffering, because thanks to suffering do we go looking for peace. Note, the transcript says looking for Hutin TM likely peace Teen TM and or Buddha based on context, but I will translate the sentiment. When a Buddhist says, "I cannot let go," actually it is not because you do not know how to let go, but because you do not yet clearly see the value of letting go. Does holding on help you be happy? Does holding on make that person return? Does holding on make the situation better? If the answers are all no, then why still hold on? Only when asking oneself like that does the mind open itself. Letting go does not require effort, only clear seeing. When seeing, one naturally lets go, like someone waking up from a dream. No need to chase away the darkness because knowing the sun has risen. When seeing impermanence, we will smile at what has passed, because knowing that all is just a breeze passing through our lives, leaving a lesson as light as a breath. Gratitude is the peak of letting go, because only when the mind no longer blames does the heart give rise to gratitude. A person who still blames is a person who's not let go. A person who is grateful is a person who is crossed to the other shore of suffering. When we are grateful to the person who makes us suffer, the resentment immediately dissolves, because gratitude and resentment cannot exist together in one mind. When the mind generates gratitude, resentment naturally disappears. Someone said, "How can I be grateful to the person who betrayed me?" But if looking deeply, we will see they taught us the most important lesson. Do not place your happiness in the hands of others. True happiness only comes when we understand and love ourselves. When understanding like this, we will feel grateful for everything, both those who stay and those who have left, both joy and sadness, because all are leading us back to ourselves. Buddhists practice contemplating impermanence every day. Looking at loved ones, remember they are also changing every second to cherish them more. Looking at adversity, remember it will eventually pass, so the heart stops fearing. Looking at those who hurt us, remember they are also people who are suffering, so the mind generates compassion, and when able to love, we will feel gratitude. Impermanence teaches us understanding. Letting go teaches us peace. Gratitude teaches us happiness. When these three things combine, it is the path of a wise person. A person who understands impermanence no longer wants to contend. A person who knows how to let go no longer wants to hold. A person with a grateful heart no longer sees suffering. At that time, even though life still changes, the mind is still as quiet as water, as bright as the moon, as warm as the smile of the Buddha amidst the realm of impermanence. If after listening to this part in your heart, dear Buddhists, you feel lighter, understanding that all suffering will eventually pass, only gratitude and letting go remain, then that is the sign of wisdom blooming. I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps a sincere word, a good intention of you, dear Buddhists, will help someone who is suffering find peace. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button to spread the Buddha's teachings together, connect more good affinities, and pray for all Buddhists to increase blessings through beautiful words, good thoughts, and a deeply grateful heart amidst an impermanent life. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I know the ego is the root of suffering. I know silence is wisdom. I know patience is a blessing. I know impermanence is real. But when encountering situations, I still generate anger, still want to be superior, still get swept away by people's words. I have studied so much. Why is my mind not yet at peace?" That question is a mirror reflecting all of us, because the path of cultivation is not a matter of a day or a month, but a long journey of a lifetime of recognizing and transforming. The ego cannot dissolve in one Dharma talk. It dissolves gradually in every breath of mindfulness, and every time we know to stop, know to quiet down, know to turn inward. Like an iceberg in the ocean, the visible part is small, the submerged part is large. The ego we see is just the visible part. The deep ego lies in the habits of wanting to be superior, wanting to gain, wanting to win, wanting to be acknowledged. Therefore, the more we practice, the deeper we must look, not to see the faults of others, but to see the self insinuating itself within us. The Buddha taught that no one makes us suffer except our own mind. When our mind gives rise to the desire to be right, at that moment suffering begins. When we want others to understand us, suffering increases. When we want to be loved but aren't, suffering becomes full. Everything revolves around the word want. So cultivation is learning how to want less, not to have no dreams, but not to be dependent on the result. The deeper one studies, the more one sees that happiness does not lie in how others treat us, but in whether we can keep our hearts at peace. We cannot control what people say, but keeping our own minds is something we can do. A person who can keep a gentle heart amidst 100 words contrary to their wishes and still smile, that is a true practitioner. Another Buddhist asked, "I know silence is good, but if I am silent too much, people look down on me, and I feel aggrieved. The Buddha taught that a wise person does not need others to praise, because the praise and blame of the world are just wind. If we are silent out of fear, we will suffer. But if we are silent out of understanding, we will be at peace. Those who do not understand will think we lost. But a Buddhist who understands the Dharma knows they are only stopping to preserve the mind. When the mind is steady enough, we do not need to prove anything because peace proves it for us. The ego wants to be seen, while wisdom only wants to be quiet. The more wisdom one has, the gentler one becomes. The gentler one is, the brighter one becomes. And the brighter one is, the more peaceful one becomes. So do not worry about worldly people misunderstanding. Only need the Buddha in your heart to understand correctly. Another Buddhist asked, I want to be patient, but when insulted, I still react quickly. Words come out before the mind can stop. How can I stop in time? The Buddha taught, before speaking, look back at the mind. A deep breath is the boundary between wisdom and anger. When the mind is still agitated, the words that come out will be heavy. When the mind is quiet, the words that come out will be light. If you, dear Buddhists, practice the habit of taking a deep breath before speaking, breathing a slow breath before reacting, then right at that moment the mind will settle and wisdom will appear. Initially, we may forget, but just remembering once is one step forward. Little by little, the mind will get used to stopping. Once knowing how to stop, all arguments will dissolve. A person who wins with words only wins for a moment, while a person who wins with the heart wins for a lifetime. Buddhists who have practiced for many years is seeing themselves becoming more sensitive to others' words. That is a sign to turn back, because cultivation is not to become more sensitive, but to become lighter. A true practitioner hears criticism without suffering, hears praise without joy, not because of insensitivity, but because of clearly understanding that the nature of praise and blame is impermanent. When the mind is no longer swayed by the sounds of life, that is when we are truly living in the Tao. Cultivation is not avoiding life, but learning how to live amidst life without being dragged away by it. When understanding like this, we will see that each person speaks a word, but only we are the ones who choose how to listen. And if we listen with a gentle heart, then no matter how heavy the worldly words are, they will become as light as clouds. Finally, the Buddha taught that the person who conquers themselves is the strongest. Conquering others only requires the mouth, but conquering oneself requires wisdom, requires cultivation, requires heart. When we can stop before a fit of anger, that is winning. When we can let go of an attachment, that is winning. When we smile at things contrary to our wishes, that is winning. Those three words, conquering oneself, are the three doors opening to peace. The more the ego dissolves, the wider the heart. When the heart is wide, whatever anyone says cannot touch it. When the heart is bright, whatever anyone does cannot make us suffer. And when the heart is at peace, no matter how much the winds of life blow, we still stand still like a mountain. A wise person does not need to be right, does not need to be superior, does not need to win, only needs a gentle mind, bright wisdom, and a compassionate heart. That is the path leading to true happiness. A Buddhist asked, Sir, I know the ego is the cause of suffering. I know letting go is happiness. But when attacked, spoken wrong of, or looked down upon by someone, I still can't stand it. I know I must be patient, must be silent, but inside I still boil up, still want to be superior, want to tell them I am right. What must I do to truly let go of my ego? That question is the very real state of mind of a person practicing amidst life. Because saying is easy, but letting go of the ego is a long road. The Buddha taught that no one makes you suffer. Only your mind does not yet understand that suffering does not come from outside, but from within the heart, from the place where you have not yet admitted defeat, the small ego within yourself. When others speak wrongly, we react strongly not because of those words, but because the ego in us is touched. That ego is like an unhealed wound. Just a light touch causes pain, but if the wound is healed, no matter how strong the wind is, we don't feel the sting. Therefore, letting go of the ego is not weakness, but healing oneself. Buddhists should practice looking at the ego like a stubborn child in the heart. When someone goes against its will, it gets angry. When someone praises, it gloats. When someone criticizes, it hurts. Every time that ego appears, smile and whisper, "I know you are angry, but I won't let you lead." Just that one thought of mindfulness is already cultivation, because cultivation is not destroying the ego, but seeing it, understanding it, and not being dragged away by it. A practitioner with wisdom does not kill the ego, but transforms it from the ego wanting to be superior to the ego wanting to understand, from the ego wanting to win to the ego wanting to love. When transforming like that, we are still us, but us in clarity, no longer suffering. The ego does not disappear in a day or two, but every time we see it without reacting is a time the ego gets smaller. Just like that, a little every day, until at some point you will see that what used to make you angry now only makes you smile. That is when the mind has grown larger than the ego, and the heart has become a mountain. Someone asked, "I let go of everything, but why do others keep talking?" The Buddha taught, "Wind only blows light objects. It cannot blow a mountain. When your heart is firm, whatever others say cannot touch it. Their speaking is their business, your peace is your business. If you still feel suffering, it means inside you still want them to be quiet, to understand, to love, and that word must. Want is the image of the ego. A person who understands the Tao does not need to force others to change, only needs their own mind not to waver, because the person speaking wrong words will bear their karma, while the person keeping a gentle mind will gain blessings for themselves. The smaller the ego, the greater the blessings. The more the ego dissolves, the brighter the wisdom. When you can let go of the need to prove, naturally others can no longer harm you. Buddhists also need to understand, letting go does not mean abandoning. Sometimes one still has to speak, still has to act, but speaking with a peaceful mind, acting with a kind heart. When the ego no longer intervenes, words become clear, actions become correct. But when the ego is still there, words, however beautiful, smell of anger. Actions, however good, are entangled with attachment. The Buddha taught that a wise person speaks words like a passing breeze, cool but not cold, light but not drifting. A person who can let go of the ego speaks little, but everyone who hears feels peace. A person who is not let go speaks much, but no one finds peace. Therefore, cultivation is not learning more but subtracting, reducing useless speech, reducing thoughts of rivalry, reducing the desire to prove. When we can reduce, we will see our mind like an autumn lake, flat, clear, and cool. reflecting the entire sky. Finally, letting go of the ego is not just for one's own peace, but to be able to love others more. Because when the ego is small, compassion is large. When compassion is large, we no longer see anyone as an opponent, only see that everyone is suffering, learning, and walking with us on the path of enlightenment. At that time, we do not need to contend, do not need to be right, do not need to be superior, only need to live with a gentle heart, kind words, and good intentions. A person who conquers themselves is a wise person. A person who conquers others is a worldly person. Worldly people win with their mouths, while wise people win with their hearts. When you conquer the very ego within you, you don't need to conquer anyone else. Naturally, the heart is as peaceful as the earth. Even if the wind blows, it does not shake. And that is true happiness, the happiness of a person who knows how to let go, knows how to stop, knows how to smile in impermanence, and knows how to love in understanding the Tao. If after listening to this part, in your hearts, dear Buddhists, you see that conquering others is only temporary, while conquering oneself is true peace, then please keep a gentle breath, a gentle smile to nurture. At peace, I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps a sincere word, a good intention of you, dear Buddhists, will help someone who is also suffering because of the ego to learn how to let go. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button to spread the Buddha's teachings together, so more blessings, and pray for all Buddhists to increase blessings through beautiful words, good thoughts, and a humble heart amidst an impermanent life. The story of the two monks. Long ago at an ancient temple on a mountain, there were two young monks studying together under the guidance of a Zen master. One was named Tam Tri-Mind, intellect, hot-tempered, and fond of debating, always wanting to prove he was right, always wanting to win in every word. The other was named Tam in peace, gentle, quiet, often silently listening. Whether anyone spoke right or wrong, he just smiled. One day, during a scripture study session, Tam tried to discuss the Buddha's teaching in the Metta Sutta. He argued that patience is enduring, while Tam said patience is understanding. The two argued, words flying back and forth, getting louder and louder. Finally, Tam Tri got angry and walked away, refusing to talk anymore. The Zen master watched the scene, remaining silent, then called both of them the next day. The master asked Tam Tri, "How do you feel about yesterday's argument?" Tam Tri said, "Master, I just wanted to speak correctly according to the scriptures." But he was stubborn. The master nodded and turned to ask Taman, "And you?" Taman replied, "Master, I felt I didn't understand enough to fully express the Buddha's words, so I stopped." The master smiled and told both to follow him to the temple courtyard. In the courtyard, there was a lake with clear water. The master took a handful of salt and threw it into the lake, then said, "Taste this water and see if it's salty." The two drank. The water was still sweet. The master then took another handful of salt and put it into a small cup of water, then told Tam Tri to taste it. As soon as the salt touched his tongue, he grimaced. It was very salty. The master spoke slowly. "It is the same salt, but the lake water is not salty. The cup water is salty. Because the lake is wide, the cup is small. The human mind is the same. When the heart is narrow, a single word contrary to one's wishes causes suffering. When the heart is wide, 1,000 words do not shake it." Tam Tri bowed his head in silence tears falling. From that day on, Tam Tri began to practice silence. Every time he heard someone speak contrary to his wishes, he inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, recited the Buddha's name, and remembered the Master's words. Gradually, he no longer wanted to prove, only wanted to listen. One day, a young novice monk newly entered the temple. While working, carelessly spilled a bucket of water, soaking Tam Tri's clothes. The novice was terrified and knelt to apologize. Tam Tri looked at his wet clothes and smiled. "It's okay, the water just cools me down." From afar, the Zen master saw and nodded slightly. After the evening session, the master said to the assembly, "Today I saw someone win a very great battle, not winning against others, but winning against himself." Hearing this, everyone was quiet. Tam Tri knew the master was speaking about him, but said nothing, only bowing his head. From then on, he changed his Dharma name to Tam in equanimity. And truly, since knowing how to stop the ego, knowing patience, knowing to let go, his mind was as calm as the lake surface. Every time someone spoke contrary to his wishes, he just smiled. If anyone asked, he simply replied, "Wind blows across the lake remains still." That story teaches us that conquering oneself is the path of wisdom. Those who conquer others only win with their mouths. Those who conquer themselves win with their hearts. When we conquer others, we are only happy for a moment. But when we conquer ourselves, we are at peace for a lifetime. The bigger the ego, the more the suffering. The wider the mind, the deeper the peace. A true practitioner does not seek to stop the wind, but only learns to make their heart a wide lake. When the heart is wide, all gossip becomes small grains of salt. A wise person does not need to prove right or wrong, only needs to keep a bright mind, a gentle mind, a quiet mind. That is the Tao amidst life. Winning with the heart, not winning with words. Buddhists listening to this story, if looking deeply, will see that every time we suffer because of someone, actually we are only suffering because of our own ego. Others are just like a handful of salt, while our heart is the water. If we are narrow, the salt makes us bitter. If we are wide, the salt dissolves in peace. Therefore, practice being lake. Do not be a small cup of water. When the heart is wide enough, no matter how much the winds of life blow, we remain gentle, bright, and at peace. And when keeping the mind like that, we are walking on the path of the wise person, the person who conquers themselves, the person who truly no longer suffers amidst impermanence. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I listened to the story of the two monks you told. I found it very good, but there is still one thing I cannot do. I know conquering oneself is important, but when someone insults, speaks wrongly, or intentionally provokes anger, I cannot keep calm. What must I do to conquer myself in such moments?" That question is very close because almost all of us encounter it. Conquering oneself is the hardest thing in life because the enemy outside is easy to see, while the enemy inside is invisible. It bears the name ego, small but strong, cleverly hiding under the shell of "I am right," "I am being harmed," "I am being looked down upon." When we do not see it clearly, we are easily led astray without knowing. But the Buddha taught that when you recognize anger, you have walked halfway to peace. So conquering oneself is not about not getting angry, but knowing you are angry and stopping in time. Stopping is winning. Buddhists imagine when someone speaks insulting words, they throw a flame at us. If we pick it up to throw it back, both get burned. But if we look at it, smile, and do not accept it, the flame falls down and extinguishes. Conquering others is reaction. Conquering oneself is stopping. Stopping is not to endure, but to prevent the fire from spreading. When we stop, the anger loses strength because it needs words to feed it. Ignorant people do not know how to stop. Wise people know how to be quiet. Practitioners know how to smile. A smile in a fit of anger can save a whole lifetime of blessings. The Buddha taught that a person who knows patience in a moment of anger will avoid 100 days of sorrow. Patience here is not endurance, but clearly seeing the arising and ceasing of anger. When seeing, the anger dissolves. When not seeing, it burns. Conquering oneself is seeing. Losing to oneself is forgetting. A Buddhist said, "I know I must stop, but at that moment I'm not fast enough." Actually, not fast enough is because we haven't trained. To conquer others, we must train the strength of the body. To conquer oneself, we must train the strength of the mind. That strength comes from the breath. Every time you are about to get angry, just breathe slower, inhale long, exhale deeply, and whisper, "I know I am angry." That one breath is the footstep of conquering oneself, because anger is hot energy. Breath is cool water. When the two meet, the fire goes out, the water clears. A practitioner does not need to fight enemies outside, only needs to breathe and smile. Conquering oneself is not by effort, but by awareness. The more aware, the more one wins. Buddhists also need to know that the person making us suffer is actually helping us practice. They are a test to see if our mind is at peace yet. If we hear them speak and are unmoved, it means we have passed the test. If we are still angry, still suffering, it means the lesson is still being learned. So instead of resentment, say thank you. The person helping us conquer ourselves is not the one who praises, but the one who criticizes. The person helping us mature is not the one who loves, but the one who goes against our wishes. If we understand that, we will see gratitude in suffering, see the Tao in life. Conquering oneself is not far away. It is right, and every time we do not retaliate, do not rival, do not react. Every time maintaining calm is a victory. Every time smiling before something contrary to our wishes is a practice. When we conquer ourselves, the first thing that changes is not others but the mind. Mind peaceful, surroundings favorable. Mind bright, life gentle. Mind knows to stop, karma stops. When the mind is at peace, all words contrary to our wishes sound light. A person who understands the Tao does not avoid the wind, but turns the wind into music. Does not dodge the waves, but surfs the waves with a peaceful mind. Conquering others makes us happy for a moment. Conquering ourselves makes us peaceful for a lifetime. Worldly people seek victory with words. Practitioners seek victory with the heart. Winning with words decreases blessings. Winning with the heart increases blessings. When the heart no longer wants to be superior, we no longer lose. Mind is at peace. We no longer need to prove. When seeing like that, whatever anyone says or does, we remain as peaceful as the earth, as cool as water, as bright as the moon. That is the Tao midst life, the greatest victory of a wise person. If after listening to this part, in your hearts, dear Buddhists, you feel that conquering others is only temporary, while conquering oneself is true peace, then please keep a gentle smile and a light breath to nurture that inner peace in daily life. I respectfully invite you, dear Buddhists, to share your feelings in the comments section below. Perhaps a sincere word or a good intention of you, dear Buddhists, will help someone also find tranquility in their heart. And please, dear Buddhists, joyfully press the subscribe button to listen to more of the Buddha's teachings together, spread the Dharma, and pray for all Buddhists to increase blessings through beautiful words, good thoughts, a wholesome mind, and a serene smile amidst the impermanent flow of life. The story of the butcher's ego. Long ago in a small village near the forest, there was a butcher named Ho. From youth to old age, he was famous for being hot-tempered, easily offended, and always wanting to be right. Whoever spoke contrary to his wishes, he immediately got angry. Whoever offered advice, he considered it an insult. Therefore, everyone in the village was afraid. No one dared to come near. One day, a wandering monk passed by, stopping to ask for a cup of water. Ho saw the stranger and asked annoyedly, "Monk, what are you asking for?" The monk smiled and replied, "I ask for water to wash my hands and ask for your heart to wash away anger." The saying surprised Ho, but instead of thinking, he snapped, "What are you saying, monk? I am not angry." The monk looked straight into his eyes, speaking gently. A person who is angry without knowing they are angry, that anger is even deeper. Saying that, the monk quietly walked away. That night Ho could not sleep. The monk's words kept echoing in his head. A person who is angry without knowing they are angry, he saw that it seemed he was truly living like that. In the morning, he went to the temple to find that monk. When they met again, he asked, "Sir, how do I know I am angry?" "When I am angry, I only see myself as right." The monk smiled gently. "When you still want to be right, you are wrong. When you still want to be superior, you are losing. When you still feel insulted, the ego in you is living." A wise person does not need to be right, only needs the mind to be at peace. Because if being right means losing peace, then that right is also useless. Ho stood silent, feeling as if something dropped in his heart. From that day, he began to practice silence. Every time someone spoke contrary to his wishes, he remembered the monk's teaching, inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, and did not reply. The first time he felt uncomfortable, like there was fire in his chest, but after a while the anger passed, and his heart was strangely light. Gradually, he learned how to stop before speaking. One day, a neighbor spilled dirty water in front of Ho's house. Ho was very angry, but then remembered the monk's words. If being right means losing peace, then that right is also useless. He suddenly smiled, took water to wash it clean, saying nothing. The neighbor was ashamed and came to apologize. From then on, both became friends. The villagers were all surprised, saying, "Mr. Ho has changed his temper, gentle as a monk." Many years later, when the monk returned to the village, Ho knelt to pay respects and said, "Thanks to your teaching, I saw the ego in myself, and now I live more peacefully. I no longer see anyone making me suffer, because I understand that no one makes us suffer except our own mind." The monk just smiled. When you no longer want to conquer anyone, you have conquered yourself. Then he looked out at the field, continuing, "Do you see that grass? The wind blows and the grass bends, but when the wind passes, the grass stands again. The ego is like the wine. If you know how to be still, the wind will go, the grass will be green." From then on, people in the village called Mr. O gentle Ho, people who used to fear him now came to learn from him how to keep peace. When asked, he just laughed. I have nothing special, just learned how to lose in words to win in the heart. He often told those who came for advice, the ego is like a knife used to chop meat. It is useful. Used to point at people, it harms oneself. If we keep it in the right place, we are at peace. If we let it lead, we suffer. That saying spread throughout the village. Everyone who heard it became quiet, seeing themselves in it. Buddhists hearing this story can see that the winner is not the person who is reason, but the person who maintains peace. The ego makes us contend, makes us lose blessings, but when knowing to look at it and let it go, we gain a victory that no words can compare to. That is equanimity, when we no longer want to be superior to anyone, no longer need to be right. Then in this world, no one can make us suffer anymore, because suffering does not come from others, but from the ego that refuses to dissolve. A person who knows how to recognize the ego is a person walking on the path of wisdom and liberation. A Buddhist asked, Sir, I heard the story of the butcher hole. I see my heart in it. I also know the ego is the root of suffering. But every time someone speaks contrary to my wishes, I still react, still want to be right, want others to understand me. I know anger is wrong, but if I stay silent, I feel resentful. So what must I do to truly let go of the ego without feeling at a disadvantage? That question is the very real state of mind of many practitioners amidst life. For who among us has never suffered because of wanting to be understood, wanting to be acknowledged, wanting others to see we are right? But the Buddha taught a wise person does not need to win with their mouth, but wins with their heart. Winning with the heart is stopping the ego, while winning with the mouth is feeding the ego. When we are silent in understanding, silent in love, even if others do not yet understand us, we are still at peace. But when we try to speak to be right but still have anger, then even if we win with words, the heart still loses. Buddhists should know the ego is like a small mountain in the mind. Whenever anyone touches it, the heart shakes, but that mountain is not real. It is only created by habits of wanting to be superior, wanting to be right, wanting to be recognized. When someone speaks wrongly, we get angry not because of those words, but because we are disturbed. A person who understands the Tao will turn inward to reflect. Why am I angry? If seeing clearly, we will know that anger does not come from the other person, but from where we still cling. Seeing the place of clinging is the first step of letting go. When seeing anger has no place to cling, seeing it does not master us. Butcher O in the story did not stop being angry in one day, but he conquered himself bit by bit. Every time stopping, the ego got smaller. Every time letting go, the heart grew wider. The difficulty for a practitioner is not knowing, but knowing and not yet being able to do it, because the ego is present in every breath, every word. It makes us want others to listen to us, makes us annoyed when forgotten, makes us suffer when looked down upon. To let go, one must practice looking at it like a mischievous friend. When seeing it arise, do not chase it away, just smile. Every time you smile is a time the ego weakens. Like Butcher Ho, he did not force himself to become gentle, just practiced stopping before getting hot, just stop, then breathe, then smile. After many times like that, the mind naturally becomes gentle. That is the way of letting go lightly but deeply. A Buddhist asked if we are always patient, always silent. What if others encroach further? The Buddha taught silence is not admitting defeat, but winning with wisdom. A wise person knows when to speak, when to be quiet. Being quiet when the other person is angry is wisdom. Speaking when the other person is calmed down is compassion. A wise person is not silent in fear, but silent in clarity. When we are clear, the words we speak afterward will make the listener calm down. If we speak in anger, even beautiful words become ugly. If we speak in peace, ordinary words become wholesome. Therefore, conquering others is not equal to conquering oneself. Winning with words is not equal to winning with the heart. Buddhists remember letting go of the ego does not make us lose anything, but makes us gain much. We lose rivalry, but gain peace. We lose arguments to gain bliss. We lose a word, but keep a lifetime of blessings. The ego makes us smaller, while humility makes us grow larger. A person who knows how to bow down is a person standing firm. A person who knows patience is a person with blessings. A person who knows how to let go is a person with wisdom. When we see ourselves reacting, stop for one breath. Silently recite Namo Amitabha Buddha. That breath is the bridge bringing us back to peace. The person who conquers themselves with one breath is the person practicing in every moment of life. Finally, a person who understands the Tao will see that the ego only makes us tired. The more we hold, the more we suffer. The more we let go, the lighter we are. A person who conquers themselves does not need to prove anything because peace is the clearest evidence. Like Butcher Ho, when his mind became gentle, his words became light. People naturally understood. He didn't need to speak. A true practitioner does not seek to be understood, only seeks to keep the heart. When the heart is clear, the sky naturally brightens. When the mind is gentle, life naturally becomes peaceful. And when the ego dissolves, we truly see the Buddha within ourselves. The story of the two boatmen and the river. Long ago, on the bank of a large river, there lived two boatmen near each other. One was named Law Prophet, Gain. One was named Tam Heart, Mind. Both were gentle, making a living ferrying guests across the river. But Lo always wanted to be superior, wanted to be praised, wanted everyone to acknowledge him as the best rower. Every time he heard a guest praise Tam, Lo felt uncomfortable in his heart, telling himself he must try to make people speak well of him. As for Tam, he was different. He just quietly rowed. Whoever said anything, he just smiled. People praised him, he thanked them. People criticized him, he also thanked them. One day, two guests wanted to cross the river at the same time. One chose Lo's boat, one chose Tam's boat. In the middle of the stream, big waves rose, water swirled. Lo wanted to prove he was skilled, so he tried to row hard, shouting loudly, "See, only I can get people across the river." But the more he tried, the more his boat wobbled. Meanwhile, Tam still calmly watched the water flow and rowed gently, following the waves, not resisting, not rushing, not afraid. Finally, both reached the shore, but Tam's boat arrived first, the guest remaining calm. That guest said, "You're truly skilled, big waves but still peaceful." Tam just laughed. "It's not that I'm skilled, but I don't fight against the water." Law heard this and was very angry because he thought Tam was intentionally speaking sarcastically. That night he went to find Tam, asking why he said he didn't fight against the water. Water doesn't know how to fight. Only people know how to fight. Tam smiled gently, invited La to sit down, poured tea, and said, "Do you see the river out there? Water never fights. Only the rower wants to be superior. When people want to beat the water, people get tired. When people go with the water, people are at peace. Life is the same. We do not suffer because of life, but suffer because of our desire to win." Lord listened in silence. That sentence was like a bell striking his heart. He sat for a long time, then sighed. "You are right. For so many years I kept wanting people to praise me, wanted to be superior, but never felt peace." Tam said, "Actually, everyone has a river in their heart. The ego is like a wave. It rises because of the wind of attachment. If we know how to be still, the wave dissolves itself." From that day, Lord changed. He still rowed the boat, still ferried people across the river, but his heart no longer wanted to be superior. People praised, he just smiled. People criticized, he still bowed to thank them. Once a guest said his boat was slow, he just laughed. Slow, but arriving at the shore is better than fast but sinking. That saying spread throughout the village. People called him the boatman who knows how to stop. One day, Tam came to visit. Looking at the river in the afternoon, asked, "Do you see the water today is different from yesterday?" Lo replied, "No, only my heart is different." Tam laughed. "Correct, the river is still the same, only the person changed." Many years later, people asked Loy, "You used to be hot-tempered, used to want to win. Why are you so gentle now?" He replied, "I learned the most precious thing from my friend. Don't fight with the water. Don't fight with life. Just need to keep the heart quiet." People asked, "Does the ego go away?" He said, "No, but it has become small, so small that when the wind rises, I only hear the sound of water, not hearing my own voice anymore." Buddhists hearing this story can see that the ego is the wave in the heart. When we want to win, waves rise. When we know to be quiet, water is calm. A wise person does not resist life, but goes with causes and conditions. Like the boatman knowing to follow the water, we learn how to follow life without being swept away by the waves of the mind. The smaller the ego, the wider the mind. The wider the mind, the more peaceful life is. A practitioner does not need to make the river flat, only needs to make their heart unmoved. And when the heart is at peace, no matter how big the waves are, they are just the sound of water touching the shore and then dissolving into the vastness. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I listened to the story of the two boatmen and saw myself in it. I also know the ego causes suffering. No rivalry is tiring. But why, when meeting someone speaking contrary to my wishes, I still want to prove, still want to be recognized as right? I know silence is good, but if I stay quiet, people will think I am weak. What must I do to let go of the ego and still live harmoniously amidst life?" That question is very real. For everyone in life has times feeling like the boatman Loy, knowing it's wrong but unable to stop. The ego is inherently subtle because it hides deep in the smallest thoughts. When someone praises, it is happy. When someone criticizes, it is sad. When someone competes, it wants to be superior. When someone surpasses, it refuses to lose. It makes us run all our lives chasing external things while forgetting to look inside. The Buddha taught that a person who conquers 1,000 armies is not equal to a person who conquers themselves. Therefore, conquering the ego is not making others submit, but making one's own mind quiet. When spoken to contrary to our wishes, the mind generating a reaction is natural due to habits from many lifetimes. But if we recognize that moment, know we are wanting to be right, wanting to win, then right at that moment we are awake. Being awake is cultivating. Seeing is stopping. A person who does not yet see is led by the ego. A person who sees makes the ego dissolve. Buddhists should remember the ego cannot be destroyed by force, only dissolved by understanding. When we understand that all right and wrong are born of conditions, people's words are just impermanent sounds, we will see there is nothing worth holding on to. Some say, if everyone yields, bad people will encroach. But the Buddha taught the silence of a wise person has more power than 1,000 words of justification, because silence and clarity makes the listener calm down, while words and anger only make the wind stronger. A person who wins with words only makes others lose. A person who wins with the heart makes both peaceful. Buddhists contemplate that the river out there does not compete with anyone, yet still reaches the sea, because it knows to flow down, needing not to rise high. A person with wisdom is the same, not competing for superiority, only quietly walking towards goodness. The ego wants to be on top, but water only seeks the low place, and that very low place is the safest. When we know how to bow down, it is not weakness, but having enough wisdom to see clearly that bowing down is the path of peace. Boatman Tam in the story did not conquer love with talent, but with heart, because he understood waves only rise when the rower fights against the water. If we follow the flow, waves are no longer enemies, but the rhythm of the river. A person who understands the Tao does not fear waves, only fears the heart-raising waves. When we meet someone who makes us generate anger, remember they are just a mirror reflecting our mind. What they say is not important. What is important is, do we get infected? If infected, it means the ego is still big. If keeping calm, it means we have conquered ourselves. Conquering others is just conquering with the mouth. Conquering oneself is conquering at the root. A person who conquers themselves does not need to prove, does not need to be superior, does not need to be praised, only needs the heart to be at peace. Because when the heart is at peace, people's words become gentle, life's waves become smooth. So a wise person does not seek to flatten the river, but only learns how to flatten their own heart. When the heart is flat, waves naturally quiet down. Buddhists should practice a little every day. When someone speaks contrary to your wishes, do not reply hastily. Take a deep breath. Recite Namo Amitabha Buddha, one breath. That is one beat of conquering oneself. Every time conquering a fit of anger, we are reducing a part of karma. Every time conquering a word wanting to be superior, we are sowing a seed of blessing. Gradually, the ego gets smaller, the heart gets lighter. One day, when someone says something and we just smile, not out of contempt, but out of understanding, that is when we have truly conquered ourselves. A person who conquers themselves feels light wherever they go, speaks wholesomely whatever they say, lives amidst life without being swept away by life. At that time, wind blowing becomes music, waves rising become Dharma, and the heart is as peaceful as the autumn river's surface, flat and clear, reflecting the entire peaceful sky. The story of the mirror in the ancient temple. Long ago, in an ancient temple located deep in the forest, there was a novice monk named Wisdom. He was intelligent, quick, memorized scriptures fast, chanted every word clearly, so he was praised by many. But precisely because of being praised, he started to feel superior. When Dharma brothers chanted wrong, he shook his head slightly. When someone read slowly, he smiled mockingly. One day, during the morning chanting session, he heard an old monk chant a verse wrong, immediately frowned, and thought to himself, practicing for so long yet still reading wrong like that. The next day the abbot called Tri and said, "This morning did you see anything strange?" Tri surprisingly replied, "No, sir." The teacher just smiled. "Go to the back of the temple into the old altar room, and there is an ancient mirror. Look into it and then come back here." Tri did as told. When entering the room, he saw the old mirror covered in dust. He wiped it gently. In the mirror appeared the image of himself, but the face was grimacing, eyes filled with annoyance. Tri was startled. The teacher was standing behind him and whispered, "Who do you see in there?" Tri replied softly, "Sir, I see me. But why does my face look so strange?" The teacher smiled gently. "The mirror does not know anger. It just reflects whatever is in front of it. The mirror reflects the grimace because that is what you brought to it. The fault of others is just a mirror reflecting your mind that is moving. When you see others' faults, it is when your own fault is manifesting." Hearing this, Tri bowed his head, tears falling. From that day, novice monk Tri changed. When someone did wrong, he no longer frowned. When someone read slowly, he joined his palms to listen. When someone worked unskillfully, he stepped in to help gently. One afternoon, while sweeping the temple courtyard, a brother asked, before he used to point out people's faults, "Why are you so quiet now?" Tri smiled and replied, "Because now every time I see someone's fault, I remember the old mirror. The mirror showed me that the person who is wrong is my teacher because they help me see I am not yet compassionate enough." One day, the abbot fell seriously ill. Called Tri and instructed, "Later you will replace me in the temple. Remember, keeping the temple is not hard, only keeping the mind is hard. If you let your mind be like a mirror, reflecting without keeping, reflecting without clinging, then the temple will be at peace, people will be at peace." Tri heard and shed tears, obeying. Many years later, having become the abbot, people saw Master Tri always smiling gently, speaking little, doing much, never getting angry. If anyone came to the temple and spoke carelessly, the master just joined his palms. Someone asked, "Why are you always so silent?" The master just replied, "Because I know the person speaking is wind, and my mind is a mirror. Wind blows past the mirror remains bright." The story of the mirror in the ancient temple spread far. People came to visit the temple not only to worship Buddha, but also to reflect themselves in that mirror. Some cried seeing their own angry faces. Some laughed seeing their minds quiet. Many years later, when Master Tri passed away, on the altar people placed that mirror again. On the mirror border were carved for words, "Mirror mind self bright Ji Jiang Tam Ti Sang." Anyone looking into it saw one thing. Not that the mirror changed, but their own mind was at peace. Buddhists hearing this story, if looking deeply, will see the mirror never has a fault. Only people refuse to reflect. Just as life does not make us suffer, only the ego makes us suffer. When seeing others' faults, it is when our mind is moving. when silent and understanding. It is when the mind is bright. A wise person does not look for faults to criticize, but looks for faults to learn. When the heart is like a mirror, clear and dust-free of rivalry, then whatever anyone says, the winds of life just blow past without leaving a trace. And that is the true wisdom of the person who conquers themselves, of the person who knows how to let go of the ego amidst the fluctuating life. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I listened to the story of novice monk Tri and the mirror in the temple. I understand I must reflect on myself. But when living amidst life, I find it very difficult. When someone does wrong, I still see their fault first, not having time to look back at myself. I know I must contemplate, but when anger rises, I forget everything. So how to make my mind truly like a mirror, seeing without sticking, seeing without clinging?" That question is very real and also very precious, because it is the first step of wisdom, knowing that the fault lies in the way of looking, not outside. The Buddha taught, "Mind pure, then environment pure." When the mind is like a mirror, whatever seen reflects, and it is bright. When the mind is turbid, beautiful scenes also become sad. Therefore, cultivation is not making the scene quiet, but making the mind bright. The mirror only reflects, not keeping the image. The practitioner's mind is the same, only seeing, then letting go, not sticking, not clinging, not comparing. When we see others' faults and generate anger, that is the mind being covered by the ego. The ego always wants to be right. So when others are wrong, we immediately have an excuse to see ourselves as superior. But if looking with wisdom, we will see the fault of others is just a mirror reflecting our mind. The slow person is for us to learn patience. The wrong person is for us to learn tolerance. The hot-tempered person is for us to learn endurance. The person speaking wrongly is for us to learn how to be quiet. So the person we call making us suffer is actually our teacher, because they teach us lessons that scriptures cannot teach. When we see like that, anger immediately dissolves, compassion immediately arises. When compassion arises, the heart is naturally at peace. Buddhists should practice reflecting on their minds like Master Tri reflecting in the mirror. Every time angry at someone, don't rush to blame them, but ask yourself why you are angry. When asking like that, we will see anger always has a root, the root of wanting, of clinging, of the ego. People do wrong, but we suffer because we want them to be right according to our will. When no longer wanting, we no longer suffer. The mirror does not choose the image, only reflects. A wise person does not choose who is right or wrong, only looks and understands. Understanding to love, loving to be at peace. So practice looking at people with the mind of a mirror, not judging, not prejudiced. Then life immediately becomes light. Old scenes, old people, but the heart is different. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, if we see others' faults but stay quiet, is it indifference?" The Buddha taught a wise person is quiet not out of fear, but out of understanding. When we are silent, but the mind is bright, that silence is the Dharma. Sometimes a kind word can help a person, but sometimes a compassionate silence helps them deeper. Because words can touch the ears, but silence can touch the heart. When someone is wrong, if we generate anger, words spoken, even if correct, become knives. But if we are silent with a gentle mind, that gentle energy will make the other person see for themselves. Just like a mirror, not speaking, not doing, just reflecting. But whoever looks and sees their own image clearly. Buddhists practice being a mirror not to reflect others, but to reflect themselves. Every time hearing someone speak, turn back to hear your own mind. Every time seeing someone wrong, look at the mind inside yourself to see what is not yet right. Just like that, every reflection is a brightening. When the mind is bright, the mirror of life, though blurry, still reflects the moonlight. A practitioner knowing how to reflect on themselves will no longer blame anyone, no longer resent anyone, only thank everyone. Because everything in life is a mirror helping us learn the Tao. When we understand like that, the mind naturally quiets, the heart naturally calms, and the smile naturally becomes gentle. The Buddha taught a wise person does not see others' faults, only sees their own faults, not because they don't see, but because they see without generating attachment. Seeing to understand, understanding to love, loving to transform. When the heart is gentle like a mirror, if people speak wrongly, we also smile. If people misunderstand, we also don't suffer. Winds of life may blow, the mirror remains bright, because wind only makes dust fly, not losing the light inside. Therefore, a practitioner does not need to chase the sounds of life, only needs to wipe clean the dust of the ego. When the ego dissolves, the mind is like a mirror, bright in silence. That is the path of the person who knows how to reflect, knows how to let go, knows how to look with compassion, and live with wisdom. The story of the shadow on the wall. Long ago in a small village in central Vietnam, there was a man named Nguyen who worked as a teacher. He was famous for being good with words, understanding scriptural meanings, speaking sharply. Students respected him, villagers honored him, but the more he was praised, the more annoyed he became with those who went against his wishes. Whoever offered advice, he considered a fool. Whoever disagreed, he viewed as an enemy. He often said, "In this world I can distinguish right and wrong perfectly." One day he went to the temple to hear a Dharma talk by a Zen master. In the talk the master said, "In this world the person who sees themselves as right forever is the person who is most wrong." Nguyen was startled, feeling annoyed in his heart. He thought, "Is this monk speaking to imply me?" Ending the session, he came to ask, "Sir, why is the person seeing themselves as right actually wrong? If everyone is silent, how to teach the ignorant?" The Zen master smiled gently, not answering, only leading him to a small room. In the room there was a lamp and a white wall. The master told him to stand in front of the wall and raise his hand. Nguyen did so, his shadow printed clearly on the wall. The master asked, "What do you see?" He replied, "Sir, I see my shadow." The master said again, "Try to hit that shadow." He laughed. "Sir, why hit the shadow?" The master replied, "That is exactly what you are doing. When people speak contrary to your wishes, you argue with the shadow in your own heart. You want to conquer the other's wrong, but actually you are losing to the anger in your mind." Finishing speaking, the master pointed at the lamp. "If you want the shadow gone, don't hit the shadow, just turn off the light. The shadow is not real. It exists only because the light shines. Your ego is the same. It is only born when you consider yourself the center." Nguyen heard this, stood silent for a long time. In his heart, it felt like something dropped. From then on, he spoke less, stopped arguing, began listening more than speaking. Every time someone did something contrary to his wishes, he remembered the image of the shadow on the wall. One day, his student asked, "Teacher, I see you are gentler than before. What did you learn at the temple?" Nguyen smiled and replied, "I learned how not to hit the shadow." The student was bewildered. He continued, "Before, whoever spoke wrongly I wanted to correct. Whoever acted contrary I wanted to prove. Now I know I was just fighting with the shadow of myself. The shadow dissolves when the light is off, and the light is due to the ego. When we stop reflecting ourselves with being right, we see the wrong in the mind." From that day, he taught differently. When students made mistakes, he didn't scold, only gently said, "It's okay. Being wrong is a lesson." When people discussed contrary to his wishes, he listened and smiled. Sometimes we are wrong, sometimes people are wrong, but ultimately everyone is learning. The villagers cherished him more than before, not because he was smart, but because he was gentle. Someone asked, "Why don't you argue anymore?" He replied, "Arguing with people is arguing with the shadow of oneself. When the heart is at peace, the shadow naturally dissolves." A few years later, he returned to the old temple, finding the Zen master to thank him. The master asked, "Do you still see the shadow?" He laughed, "Sir, the shadow is still there, but I no longer hit it." The master smiled. "Good, because the person seeing the shadow without clinging is the person truly bright." Then the master added, "The ego does not disappear, but when you see it, it has weakened. Seeing the shadow is wisdom. Not hitting the shadow is compassion. Wisdom and compassion meet. That is peace." Buddhists hearing this story will see that the ego in us is the lamp projecting many shadows of affliction. When we want to be right, want to be superior, that shadow is large. When we are humble, when we understand, that shadow is small. Wanting the shadow gone, no need to hit, just turn off the light. Turning off the light means reducing self-attachment. Reducing I, reducing mine. When the ego gets smaller, all arguments vanish. The heart naturally becomes bright like a white wall. After the light is off, a person who understands the Tao does not need to speak much, only needs to keep the mind calm. Because when the mind is calm, the shadow is no more, and the Buddha has appeared in one's own heart. A Buddhist asked, "Sir, I listened to the story of the shadow on the wall. I understand that the ego is the cause of my suffering. But when someone says something untrue or intentionally lowers me, I still feel pain and want to react. I know I am hitting the shadow, but still cannot stop. What must I do to keep a calm mind and no longer fight with the shadow of myself?" That question is very real because that is what most of us encounter. The shadow of the ego is not outside, but in the mind. It hides behind every time we are touched, after every criticism, every action making us feel hurt. People who do not yet see blame others. People who see turn back to look at the mind. But seeing does not mean it's gone, because the habit of wanting to be superior, wanting to be right, wanting to be acknowledged has been deeply rooted for a long time. Only when we truly understand and practice does that shadow gradually dissolve. The Buddha taught no one makes you suffer except your own mind. When people speak wrongly, they just throw out sounds, but our attachment turns those sounds into arrows. Others can insult, but they cannot hurt us if we do not keep their words in our hearts. The pain lies not in the words, but in the clinging mind. Therefore, conquering others is not equal to conquering the mind. When someone speaks contrary to your wishes, instead of reacting immediately, breathe really deeply and contemplate that this is just a shadow. If we do not reflect, the shadow does not appear. Inhale, no, I am angry. Exhale, no, I am letting go. That one breath, if practiced regularly, will be the lamp turning off gradually, and the shadow dissolves itself. Buddhists should remember the person speaking wrongly is also suffering. They speak out to release the suffering in their hearts. If we generate anger, we receive their suffering into ourselves. But if we generate compassion, we return to them with peace. Fire only burns when there is oil. People's words only make us suffer when there is anger in us. A wise person does not bring oil to pour into the fire, but quietly brings water. That water is compassion and understanding. Once understanding that the person speaking wrongly is also ignorant, we will love them more than be angry. When compassion arises, anger ceases. When understanding arrives, the shadow dissolves. A Buddhist asked further, but if we are silent forever, will people look down on us? The Buddha taught a wise person does not fear being misunderstood, only fears losing a gentle heart, because when the heart is gentle, the truth naturally manifests. Silence is not weak, but strong because not dragged away by words. A person who knows silence is a person maintaining sovereignty over their mind. If we speak in anger, we have let the mind be dragged away. But if we are quiet in understanding, we are winning great battle. Conquering others is a small matter. Conquering the mind is a big matter. A person who conquers themselves does not need to prove anything, because the tranquility in them is already proof. Buddhists should practice reflecting on themselves. Every time generating anger, don't rush to blame others, but ask, why am I moved? That question is the key opening the door to wisdom. When seeing clearly that the movement is not from others but from one's own mind, naturally we will know how to stop. Stopping is not to lose, but to win. Stopping is not to be weak, but to be bright. Stopping is the strength of a person with wisdom, the first step of peace. Just like the Zen master taught in the story, wanting the shadow gone, no need to hit the shadow, just turn off the light. That lamp is a fire of the ego, of attachment, of superiority, of wanting. When the mind no longer has I and mine, the shadow will dissolve, suffering will also dissolve, and the heart will be bright like a white wall. The Buddha taught that a person seeing their own faults is a person approaching the Tao. So every time seeing someone wrong, contemplate that person as a mirror for us to see the parts not yet bright in our hearts. Instead of anger, say thank you, because thanks to them, we get to practice one more step. When the mind of gratitude arises, anger naturally ceases, and when the heart is gentle, the shadow naturally dissolves. In this life, everyone has a shadow, but only a person with wisdom knows how to smile at their own shadow, because smiling is understanding. Understanding is being bright. Being bright is the end of suffering. When we conquer ourselves, no need for anyone to know, just need our hearts to be at peace. And when the heart is at peace, the winds of life are just breath, and we are free people in every step of mindfulness, walking to the very end of all suffering. Buddhists will realize that the root of everything lies not in others, not in circumstances, but in the very ego within the heart. That ego is small but tough, cleverly hiding under the shell of reason, honor, self-esteem, and desire for recognition. It makes us suffer when criticized, happy when praised, hot-tempered when insulted, and uneasy when things don't go as wished. How many arguments, how many divisions, how many pains in life all start from there. Worldly people, because of the ego, make each other suffer. Practitioners, because of seeing the ego, learn how to let go. The Buddha taught, when you no longer see yourself as superior to anyone, at that moment you are truly equal.